Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Algebra 1. This is the first week in our long coronavirus series, and today we're learning about, well, it's a review of slope-intercept form, and then we will also do point-slope form. So, hey, help me out and help yourself out. In order for this to be successful for you and useful for you, and for you to just plain stay awake, we need you to just play along. Write down stuff as you're going along. Try problems before I even get to them. Do stuff like that. Use your notes if you're in my class and you've got your notes packet. Use those to help you. Alright, so let's start off with reviewing slope-intercept form because, you've probably forgotten a lot of stuff because it's been a long time since I've seen you. Alright, let's start off with this first problem. We're going to find the slope between 2 points. So going way back, finding the slope. You hopefully remember you're going to put a line here and then 2 subtraction signs. You remember that this is x, this is y, x and y. We always start with that last y. That's going to be my 11, and I always like to circle them just so I don't accidentally do the same thing twice. There's my 11, and then your other y will go here. Remember my saying? It's very wise for you to put your y's on top. Now, what number went with 11? 11 went with -5, so this -5 has to go with the 11 down here. Then my final number is that -3. Now, a lot of people put -3 like this. I don't like 2 negatives touching each other, so I will never have you do that. Instead, when you have this negative, I'm going to cancel that one and put negative like that, 3. So now I have positive 4 on the top and then -2 on bottom. This divides and we get -2 for the slope. Don't forget that slope is also represented by the letter m. So m and slope mean the same thing. Alright, let's move on to the next one. This one asked me to find the slope-intercept equation of the line between those 2 points. So, like always, I'm going to draw those to find the slope. And remember, we're going to label these xy, xy. You hopefully can go ahead, find the slope. Go ahead, do that, hit pause, and then come back to me. Alright, there's your first y, there's your second y. These are done now. And then -1 went with 0, so 0 has to go under the -1. And then this is -2, so I'm going to slash that and make it a +2. On top I have -6, on the bottom I have 2, so that gives me -3 for my slope. Don't forget that m means slope. Now, this one didn't just ask me for the slope, it asked me for slope-intercept equation. Slope-intercept equations, remember, look like this. Oops, I almost misspelled x, that was embarrassing. This is mx plus b. Remember that your slope goes first, and then your intercept comes second. That's the whole reason why we call it slope-intercept form. Makes sense, right? Alright, so we just said just now that our slope is -3, so this -3 is going to go right there. Finally, our y-intercept is here. Now, this is where it gets a little confusing for people, but it's so easy. You're looking for the x value of 0. So which one has an x value of 0? Yes, this one. Sorry, I sounded a little like Dora there. Alright, so since this has an x value of 0, this is our y-intercept. Y-intercept means that x is 0 and we're putting our y number. So this was a -1. Now again, I don't like 2 signs touching each other, so I'm just going to change this into -1. And that's all there is to it. It's in slope-intercept form now. If I asked you what's the slope, you would tell me -3. And if I asked you what's the y-intercept, you would tell me -1. Now, some of you are wondering, well, what happens if we have 2 points and neither of them have a 0? Well, that's what we're going to learn today with point-slope form. But before we get there, let's first write this equation in slope-intercept form. Now, when you say write it in slope-intercept form, that's the same thing as if I told you solve for y. So our whole goal here is to solve this for y, and you know how to do that. We've been doing that since long ago. We're going to subtract 6x from both sides. These cancel. Don't forget to copy your negative with the 3. Those go together. And now this is a negative 6x. That's a positive 12. If you want, you can put a plus sign there. And can I combine x's with numbers like that? No, you cannot. So I cannot just make this a 6 or a 6x. I just copy what's here. And I always write the x first, just like that. Remember, these will never, ever, ever, ever combine. So you'll always have two terms here, unless there wasn't a term there, I guess. All right, so I have negative 3 touching the y. I'm going to divide both sides by negative 3 because I don't want anybody touching the y. Now I'm going to draw what you always draw on your papers. Yes, a big old heart, usually followed by I and math, just like that. That's normally what you're drawing on your homework papers to me. Thank you, I appreciate that. All right, so I've got y equals, and then negative 6 over negative 3 is 2, and then 12 divided by negative 3 is negative 4. So my final slope-intercept equation is y equals 2x minus 4. If I asked you what's the slope, you would tell me 2. If I asked you what's the y-intercept, you would tell me negative 4. On we go. Now we're going to write the equation in slope-intercept form of this line that's given to us. Now don't forget, like I always say, you live on Meridian Street. Meridian Street goes straight through the center of Indianapolis, and you want to live on the north side. On the north side, that's where all the mansions and beautiful houses are. Down on the south side, that's where the city dump is. So stuff on the north side would be very positive, and stuff on the south side is very negative. Sadly here, our house is on the south side here at negative 4. So we live down by the dump. So if I'm going to write this equation, I've got y equals something, x plus something. This y-intercept is negative 4, because that's where your house is, down by the dump. Now, from your house, you're trying to find school. So to find school, you're going to go up and over until you find the very next point. Now, I could pick a point way up here, but that's going to mean extra work for me. I want to pick the very next point that's at an integer value. So this point right here would be the very next one, because there's nothing there. So that's my next point. So from here, I'm going to go up 2. So this is a positive 2. And then we always go from left to right. So always right. So that bottom number will always be positive. Now if you wanted to, we could reduce that 2 over 1 to just 2. And that is our final answer. Next, let's talk about some special functions. This one is a vertical line. Which axis is it crossing right here? Hopefully you're thinking x. It's crossing the x-axis at negative 2. Since it's a vertical line, then I know it's just going to be x equals negative 2, and that's all. There's no y there because the line is vertical. Similarly, this one is a horizontal line. Which axis does it cross? It crosses the y-axis, and it crosses the y-axis at y equals 3. Since it's a horizontal line, there's no x. Next, you're going to charge $75 plus $20 per hour to DJ a school dance over Zoom, apparently, because we can't see each other in person. All right, so $75 plus $20 per hour. You know that it's going to be in slope-intercept form. It tells you to let C represent the cost, and T will represent the hours. So instead of X and Y, I'm going to use C and T just because the problem told me so. Now, I'm looking for a magic word. Every time I do a word problem, and it's in slope-intercept form, because again, it told me it's in slope-intercept form, I'm looking for the word per or each. Per or each. These words mean the same thing as, hey, this is the slope. So you're looking for the word per or each. That tells you, hey, my slope is here. Pay attention. All right, so I see the word per right there, and it's $20 per hour. So I'm going to take $20 and multiply by the number of hours, which is the time. So 20 times time. The slope always goes here, touching the letters. So there's my 20 times the time. And then the other amount of money, the $75, is what's being added to how much you make per hour. So it's $20 per hour plus $75 just to show up. Now, using that same equation, the C equals 20t plus 75, I want to know how many hours would you be willing to work for $200? So $200, is that a time or a cost? Well, if you thought that $200 a clock was a time, that's wrong. It should be a cost. So I'm going to put that in place of C. So plop your 200 right there. And once you've done that, you're just going to solve this equation just like you normally would. Subtract 75 from both sides. And then divide by 20. Now, some of you may be freaking out right now. Hey, this isn't going to work out evenly. That's okay. So I divide this on my calculator, and my calculator says 6.25 is t. That was 125 divided by 20. So 6.25, what did that mean? Well, the question was how many hours? So it's 6.25 hours, which is a time. So you'd be willing to work a little over 6 hours. Now, totally separate question, still using the same equation though. The C equals 20t plus 75. This question asks you how much would you charge to work for 4 hours. So how much should you charge them? 4 hours, is that a cost or a time? Hopefully you're thinking time. So our t equals 4. Right here, instead of t, I'm going to put 4 in parentheses. Just like that. Now I'm going to type this into the calculator. I've got C equals 20 times 4 plus 75. So break out that calculator and add those together, and you should get 155. Now, what does 155 mean? This is how much money we're going to charge. And since we're in America, I'm going to put a dollar sign right there. So $155 is how much we charge. I am assuming by now you've got this, so I am moving on to point-slope equations just to make sure we have plenty of time. So point-slope equations. This is the last formula for graphing that you're going to have to learn. We've learned standard form, we've learned slope-intercept form, and today is the last one. It's point-slope form. The reason why it's called point-slope form is because if I give you a point and if I give you a slope, you can put the point and slope into this function and it will be fantastic. This is going to be a big time saver for you. So right here with the green letters, you're going to plug in values. So that's where you plug in your point. Your x goes here next to the other x. Your y value goes here next to the other y. M is in the middle. M, remember, is your slope. So let's try some. M goes in the middle, so I'm going to plop that number right here. You know that this is x and this is y because you know your alphabet. So this is the x. It's going to go with the letter x. So you find the letter x and you plop it right there. This is the y, so you find the letter y and you plop it right there. And that's all there is to it. That is your point-slope form. Seems easy, right? All right, let's see if I can trick you. So again, M goes in the middle. This is x, this is y. X goes here next to the x. Y. Now this time I have a -2. Remember, I don't like two negatives touching each other. So instead of doing that, I just make it a big slash right through that minus sign. I make it a plus. So you should notice that in the equation, you have the opposite sign as what's in the point. The whole reason why is because there's a minus sign right there and right there. All right, so this and this in the point will always have the opposite sign when you go here in the equation. All right, you go ahead and try this one. Hit pause, do it, and then come back to us. Okay, 1/3. M goes in the middle. X goes here with the x, that becomes +4. Y goes here with the y, so that becomes +1. If you got that, way to go. Now we're going to go backwards. This time I'm going to give you the equation. You come up with the point and the slope. All right, the slope is easy. We're going to circle that. M goes in the middle. Next, we look for the letter x. X is here. So whatever comes after the minus sign, remember there was a minus in the formula, so after the minus sign is our point for x. Then the y portion of the point goes after the minus sign. It's 2. And that's all there is to it. Now we'll get a little bit trickier. Again, m goes in the middle. I like circling those so I don't actually accidentally put a 2 into either of these. Now my x, I have a positive 5. Remember I told you to look for the negative. So this is the same as minus negative 5. So remember before we do the opposite sign of what's here. Since this is a plus 5, this will be minus 5. And since this is a minus 6, we just put 6. And that's all there is to that one. Alright, if you don't have a number here, we can put a 1. So the slope here would be 1. And our point, this is x. It says minus 3, so this is going to be positive 3. This says positive 4, so now we're going to put negative 4. That's all there is to those. Now we're going to change equations from point-slope form to slope-intercept form. There are only 2 steps for all of these problems, as you'll notice, so you should love it. Now, even though there's a fraction, don't curl up into a ball and start to cry. It's going to be okay. So our first step is going to be distribute. We're going to distribute those right through. So this gives me y minus 5 equals 1/2 x, because it's 1/2 times x. And then half of 4. If I have $4 and I give you half, I would give you $2. That's not going to happen, but you know, you can pretend. So half of 4 gives me 2. If you didn't know how to do that, you could just type 1/2 times 4 in the calculator. Finally, your whole goal, remember slope-intercept form means solve for y. So you're trying to get the y by itself. Right now there's a minus 5 here, so to cancel the minus 5 I do plus 5. So now I have y equals 1/2 x plus 3. And that's it. It's in slope-intercept form. If I asked you what's the slope, you would tell me 1/2. If I asked you what's the y-intercept, you would tell me 3. Next, I think you can do this one on your own now, so go ahead and hit pause, do this, and then come back to us and make sure you got it right. Alright, your first step is going to be to distribute that negative 3. We're going to multiply it by both the x and the minus 2. That should give you negative 3x. And then, did you remember that a negative times a negative is a positive 6? This is the most common mistake for these problems, so make sure you have a plus 6 right there. And then, of course, we're going to subtract 1 from both sides to get y all by itself. So that gives me y equals negative 3x plus 5. What's my slope? Well, hopefully you would say negative 3. What's my y-intercept? Hopefully you would say 5. And that's it. Do you have any questions on that? No? Great. Remember, we'll do the same thing. If there's no slope there listed, you can always put a 1, and it works the same way. Now we're going to go to even more point slope. Now, we've already done problems like this, where I've given you the point and the slope, and you write it in point slope form. I think you've got that. The thing that's going to be new is giving you 2 points and creating it in slope-intercept form. So remember, way back up here somewhere, when I gave you 2 points, and one of them was the y-intercept, and remember, some students have asked me, hey, what happens when you don't have the y-intercept given to you? Well, now is the time. This is when it's happening. I am giving you 2 points with neither of them having 0 for the x. So neither one is the y-intercept. Therefore, I have to do point-slope form. In order to do point-slope form, right now I have 2 points. I need my slope. So let's go ahead and find the slope first. There's my y. Here's my other y. There's my x that goes with negative 6. And there's my x that goes with a 4. Since that was a negative 3, I'm going to put plus. So that gives me negative 10 over 5, which is negative 2. That, remember, is my slope. Now, you have a difficult decision to make, and honestly, it doesn't matter which you do. You can choose either the first point or the second point. I'm going to do both points for you just to prove that this really works. All right, I'm going to write my point slope formula. Remember when I had all those blanks there just a few moments ago and you filled in the blanks? Well, notice I'm leaving blanks here when I do this. Now again, I'm going to do this problem two different ways just to show you that it really does work no matter what you choose. So I'm going to write it twice. You only have to do this once when you're doing your homework, so do not panic. You only have to do it one way. You get to choose which point you want. I'll let you choose right now. Go ahead, pick which one. Great. All right, I'll do this one first. So I have a point and a slope. This is my x, that's my y. Remember, m goes in the middle. X goes here with x. Y goes there with y. All right. Next, I'm going to distribute my -2. Now this is what we were just doing, so this part should be hopefully pretty easy for you. Negative times a positive is a -6. And then I'll add 4 to both sides so that y is all by itself. So I have y equals -2x minus 2. Amazing. All right, now to show you this really does work, if I chose the other point instead, so let's say you chose the red one, your friend chose this light blue one, it will still work. So m goes in the middle, x goes here with the x, y goes here with the y. Then I'll distribute my -2 to both of those. So I have y plus 6 equals -2x. Did you remember a negative times a negative is a positive? Oh, I hope so. And then finally we'll subtract 6 from both sides. And look at this. Holy mama, it's a miracle. -2x minus 2 was our answer for both of them. So it does not matter which point you choose, you should still get the same answer. If you wanted to check your answer, a great method would be to do it two ways. Once you get the same answer twice, then you'll know you're right. Okay, so this time, just for the sake of saving time, I'm only going to do it once. We're all going to choose this point, this first point, when we do it. All right? So first, I would say just hit pause, see if you can find the slope, put it in point slope form, and then slope-intercept form. All right, so there's our slope. You know that -8 went here. That -2 goes here, because that's my other y. This x goes with -8, so that goes there, and 1 is the only number left. So now I have -6 over -3. That gives me 2. 2 is my slope. Alright, so there's my slope. This one is my point, that one I underlined, so let me erase this and get it out of the way. So I'm going to use the point 1, -2 with my slope of 2. Just like usual, I'm going to draw out my point slope formula. You'll notice that I write that every single time. It makes my life easier. It makes it so I don't have to think as much. So m goes in the middle. My x is 1, so I'm going to put that here. My y was -2, so I'm going to put that there. Negative slash is that minus sign. Alright, so this was my slope. This right here is in point slope form, because as my algebra teacher would always say, point slope has parentheses, and she'd spit all over the front row. Now we're going to distribute that 2 to both of those. And subtract 2 from both sides. Be very careful with your positive negative signs as you're doing this. So I have y equals 2x minus 4. Now, as soon as you have y equals, that you know is slope-intercept form. So if I asked you what's the slope, you would say 2, but you already knew that way up here. And if I asked you what's the y-intercept is -4. All right, hopefully you're getting the hang of it. Do I have time for one more? Oh, yes, I do. Let's do one more together. Again, we're going to let you choose this first point, just so we're all doing the same thing. Again, if you chose that second point, you get the same answer. It doesn't matter. But we're going to all choose the first point just to save time. Okay, you right now go ahead, hit pause. I want you to find the slope, point slope, and slope-intercept forms. Then join us when you're done. Okay, we waited just for you. 15 goes here, -3 on top. -5 went with the 15, and 4 is left over. This gave us 18 over -9, which is -2. I appear to have a lot of 2's today in the slopes. That's only a coincidence. Alright, we have a point, we have a slope. So what form do we put it in? I'm hoping you're saying point slope. So which point do I use? We chose that one. Again, either one will give us the same answer. -2, m goes in the middle. X goes with x, y goes with y. So there's my point slope. I'll just abbreviate point slope like that. Next I distribute the -2, so that gives me -2x and +8. Did you remember negative times negative is positive? I hope so. And then finally, I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides and get y equals -2x plus 5. If I asked you what's the slope, you would tell me -2. If I asked you what's the y-intercept, you would tell me +5. And that's all there is to it. All right, you know the deal. If you have any questions, I'm not there in front of you right now. So you have a couple options. One, look on my Canvas page, and at the very bottom there's my email address. You can send me an email if you have questions. Or you can look again on my Canvas page. It tells you how to see me for my office hours. Go ahead, go there, click on the link when it's time. I will be there. I am more than happy to answer your questions. If you don't have any questions, go ahead, start off the homework. The homework also on the Canvas page. Get started on that homework and see how you do. If you're feeling pretty good, great. Again, if you have questions, you know how to find me. Again, I am happy to help you. Thanks so much for paying attention, and I just hope you have a wonderful day. I will see you next week.